Hello and welcome back to our channel NPA Discovery, where we explore the lives, triumphs, and tragedies of some of the most unforgettable names in music history. Today's episode is about one of the most powerful voices the world has ever heard, a woman who transformed country music forever. Patsy Cline wasn't just another singer in Nashville's long history, she was the woman who opened doors for countless others. She proved that heartbreak, hardship, and even near-death experiences could be turned into something timeless, music that speaks to generations. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, share it with other music lovers, and subscribe to the channel. Every click helps us keep telling these powerful stories, and your support motivates us to bring you even more content like this. Alright, let's dive into the remarkable, painful, and inspiring life of Patsy Cline. The hardest beginnings, born into poverty and pain. Patsy Cline entered the world in 1932 as Virginia Patterson Hensley, in the small town of Winchester, Virginia. And from the very beginning, life made her fight for every scrap of dignity and happiness she could get. Her father, Samuel Hensley, was not the kind of man you'd call a role model. At 41 years old, he rushed into marriage with Patsy's 16-year-old mother, Hilda. And the truth? This was not a marriage of love, it was a marriage of survival. Samuel had already abandoned children from a previous relationship, and he would soon bring that same destructive behavior into Patsy's life. It's often said that artists draw their greatest songs from their deepest wounds. Patsy Cline's catalog of heartbreaking ballads is the clearest example of that. Because her childhood wasn't just touched by the Great Depression, it was defined by another depression, the one her father carried inside him. Patsy grew up in a home where moving from place to place was the norm. Her father dragged the family across Virginia at least 19 times, always chasing jobs, always leaving behind unpaid debts, and always returning home drunk and angry. To put it plainly, Patsy's earliest memories weren't of safety or stability. They were of poverty, violence, and uncertainty. And yet, here's the first remarkable lesson from her story: instead of breaking her, these experiences gave her an edge. While others might have surrendered, Patsy turned hardship into fuel. She carried herself with a toughness that later earned her the nickname, the Cline. And that toughness would prove essential, not just in surviving her home life, but in breaking into one of the most male-dominated industries in America. Love, heartbreak, and the fight for independence. Behind the curtain of her rising career, Patsy's personal life was just as stormy as her professional one. At 21, Patsy married Gerald Cline, a man nearly a decade older than her. On paper, Gerald seemed like stability, something Patsy had been denied her whole life. But the marriage quickly turned sour. Gerald was a man of tradition, and he wanted a wife who stayed home, cooked dinner, and raised children. But Patsy had no intention of giving up her dream. She wanted to be on stage, in the studio, on the radio. The tension was immediate and constant. Gerald reportedly hated the idea of Patsy performing in honky-tonks late into the night, surrounded by musicians and male fans. He wanted her grounded, she wanted the opposite, freedom. It wasn't long before the marriage began to unravel. Gerald tried to make Patsy choose between him and her music. She chose music. The divorce was finalized in 1957, and Patsy walked away with no regrets. She later said, "I'd rather have my kids and my career than a man any day." It was a bold statement for the time, but it summed up exactly who she was, fiercely independent and unafraid to live life on her own terms. The song that saved her career. In 1957, Patsy was given the chance to perform on national television. Her song, "Walkin' After Midnight." Now, here's the fascinating part: Patsy didn't even like the song at first. She thought it was too pop, too far removed from her honky-tonk roots. But when she stepped on stage and delivered it, everything changed. Her performance was electric. Viewers across America were stunned by the combination of her sultry voice, her confidence, and the raw emotion she poured into the song. Within days, "Walkin' After Midnight" shot up the Billboard charts, reaching the top 20 in both country and pop. It was her first real taste of stardom. After years of struggle, years of singing in smoky clubs and recording throwaway songs, Patsy had finally found her breakthrough. From singer to star. The success of "Walkin' After Midnight" transformed Patsy from a struggling unknown into a rising star. She was invited to perform at the Grand Ole Opry, the very stage that once turned her away. And this time, she wasn't just another hopeful, she was the main attraction. But fame didn't erase her struggles. For stars still controlled her career, and she still fought for the right to record songs she believed in. Many of her follow-up singles flopped, frustrating her and leaving critics wondering if she was just a one-hit wonder. What those critics didn't know was that Patsy Cline was only getting started. Because soon, she would find the songs, and the producers, that would cement her place as one of the greatest voices in music history. The Nashville Dream and Hardships. By the mid-1950s, Patsy Cline had become a familiar face in the honky-tonk circuits of Virginia and the surrounding states. She sang in smoky clubs, county fairs, and on local radio stations. But Patsy wasn't content with being just a small-town performer. She had her eyes set on Nashville, the heart of country music. Her big break came when she auditioned for 4 Star Records, a small but growing label. Yet, this deal turned out to be both a blessing and a curse. Patsy signed a contract that severely limited her choices. She couldn't pick her own songs, and the label often gave her material that didn't suit her rich, emotional voice. For years, she struggled, recording songs that didn't chart, fighting frustration, and wondering if she would ever make it big. But one thing Patsy had was grit. Even when doors closed, she refused to give up. She performed tirelessly, determined that one day the world would finally hear her true voice. Walkin' After Midnight and stardom. In 1957, that chance finally came. Patsy was invited to perform on Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts, a popular national television program. The song she chose was "Walkin' After Midnight." When she sang it live, her velvet tone, her aching delivery, and her undeniable charisma stopped the audience in its tracks. The judges, the crowd, and the millions watching at home were captivated. For the first time, Patsy Cline wasn't just a local girl chasing a dream, she was a rising star. The single shot up the charts, reaching the top 20 on both the country and pop lists. Patsy had achieved something rare for the time, a crossover hit. She had brought country music into mainstream America. Suddenly, she was being booked on major tours, her name printed in bold letters on posters, and her voice heard on radios from coast to coast. But with fame came new challenges. The demands of the road, the strain on her marriage, and the pressures of the music industry began to weigh on her. Patsy was no longer just fighting to be heard, now she was fighting to hold on to her place at the top. The struggles behind the spotlight. Despite her success, Patsy's personal life was far from glamorous. Her marriage to Gerald Cline, her first husband, was strained and unhappy. He didn't understand her ambition and often resented her career. Eventually, the marriage fell apart. But in 1957, Patsy remarried, this time to Charlie Dick, a man who shared her love for music but who also brought turbulence into her life. Their relationship was fiery, passionate, and often volatile. At the same time, her career hit another rough patch. After the success of Walkin' After Midnight, she struggled to find another big hit. Record executives continued to control her song choices, pushing material that didn't suit her unique style. Patsy felt trapped, a star with no control over her own destiny. Still, she never lost her determination. She sang with raw honesty, pouring her heartbreak, her struggles, and her hopes into every performance. It was this authenticity that kept her audience loyal, even when the charts didn't reflect her brilliance. The near-fatal accident. In 1961, just as her career was gaining momentum, tragedy nearly struck Patsy down. Driving with her brother in Nashville, she was involved in a horrific car crash. The impact was so severe that Patsy was thrown into the windshield, suffering a fractured hip, broken ribs, and severe facial injuries. Doctors weren't even sure if she would ever sing again. For weeks, she hovered between life and death. Fans flooded her hospital room with cards and flowers, praying for her recovery. Patsy, stubborn as ever, refused to give in to despair. Even in her hospital bed, she would hum melodies and reassure her loved ones that she would return to the stage. Her resilience shocked everyone. Within months, though still in pain and walking with difficulty, Patsy Cline returned to performing. The accident left her with scars and chronic pain, but it also gave her music an even deeper emotional weight. Her voice carried a haunting quality, as though she had touched death and come back stronger. The breakthrough hits. After the accident, Patsy's career entered its golden era. Teaming up with legendary producer Owen Bradley, she finally found the freedom to record songs that showcased her true artistry. In 1961, she released I Fall to Pieces. The song, with its mournful lyrics and aching delivery, climbed straight to #1 on the country charts and crossed into the pop charts as well. Patsy had achieved something rare. She wasn't just a country singer anymore, she was a voice that belonged to all of America. But her biggest triumph came with Crazy, a song written by a then-unknown Willie Nelson. At first, Patsy hated the song. Its unusual phrasing made it difficult to sing. But once she recorded it, the results were magical. Her soaring vocals turned Crazy into one of the greatest songs in music history. The record shattered boundaries, topping charts and becoming her signature tune. To this day, Crazy remains one of the most played jukebox songs of all time, a timeless piece of heartbreak delivered through Patsy's unforgettable voice. The Queen of Crossover. By the early 1960s, Patsy Cline was no longer just a country star. She had become one of the first true crossover artists, proving that country music could sit proudly alongside pop on the radio. Her style, a perfect blend of honky-tonk roots and sophisticated Nashville sound, brought her fans from every corner of the country. She became a member of the Grand Ole Opry, one of the highest honors in country music. And wherever she went, her commanding stage presence made her unforgettable. Unlike many women in country at the time, Patsy demanded respect. She wore elegant dresses, carried herself with confidence, and wasn't afraid to speak her mind in an industry dominated by men. But behind her strength, she carried the scars of her struggles, both physical and emotional. Friends often recalled how she would laugh loudly, live boldly, but then confide her deepest sorrows in private. It was this duality, the strong, fiery performer on stage and the vulnerable, wounded soul off stage, that made her so relatable. She wasn't just singing songs. She was living them. A premonition of death. By 1963, Patsy Cline was at the peak of her career. Her concerts were selling out, her records were climbing higher than ever, and she had finally achieved the recognition she fought so hard to earn. Yet, those close to her began to notice a change. Patsy started speaking often about death. She told friends she didn't expect to live to see 40. One chilling moment came when she told fellow singer Ray Walker, "When it's my time to go, it's my time. Nobody can stop it." These words weren't just passing thoughts. Patsy even began to make arrangements, writing out her will and making sure her children would be taken care of if anything happened. It was as though she felt the clock ticking louder than anyone else around her could hear. And then, in early March 1963, she boarded a small private plane after performing a benefit concert in Kansas City. The weather was stormy, and many urged her to wait. But Patsy, tired and eager to return home to her family in Nashville, chose to go ahead. The tragic crash. On March 5, 1963, tragedy struck. Patsy's plane went down in a wooded area near Camden, Tennessee, just 90 miles from Nashville. Everyone on board was killed instantly, including fellow Grand Ole Opry stars Cowboy Copas and Hawkshaw Hawkins. Patsy Cline was only 30 years old. News of her death sent shockwaves through the music world. Fans were devastated. Radio stations across the country played her songs non-stop as listeners wept for the voice they had lost far too soon. At her funeral, thousands gathered to pay respects, and her coffin was surrounded by flowers, cards, and tributes from around the world. The loss felt unbearable, not just because she was young, but because she had so much more to give. Many believed she was on the verge of becoming one of the greatest recording artists in all of music, not just country. Her sudden death froze her in time, forever young, forever powerful, forever remembered at the height of her brilliance. A symbol of female empowerment. Patsy Cline didn't just change country music, she changed the way women saw themselves in the music industry. Before Patsy, the country scene was dominated by men. Women were expected to sing sweetly, stay polite, and avoid rocking the boat. Patsy shattered those expectations. She sang with grit, emotion, and an honesty that often shocked conservative listeners. She dressed boldly, spoke her mind, and refused to let record executives mold her into something she wasn't. Even her stage presence broke barriers. Instead of smiling sweetly, Patsy commanded the stage with confidence, often addressing her audience directly like an equal. She wasn't afraid to show pain, sass, or toughness in her performances. Decades later, artists like Loretta Lynn and Tammy Wynette built on her trailblazing path. And in the modern era, you can trace Patsy's influence in powerful female performers like Miranda Lambert and Casey Musgraves. She showed women that they could be themselves in music, raw, imperfect, strong, and unapologetic. Her legacy is not just about songs, but about opening doors for those who came after her. Fans keep her alive. One of the most beautiful aspects of Patsy's legacy is how her fans keep her memory alive. Every year, thousands visit her hometown of Winchester, Virginia, where the Patsy Cline Historic House is preserved. The modest home where she once lived with her mother and siblings is now a museum, filled with her costumes, photos, and personal belongings. Walking through its rooms feels like stepping into the heartbeat of her early life, a reminder of how far she came from such humble beginnings. Her gravesite at Shenandoah Memorial Park is another place of pilgrimage. Fans leave flowers, notes, and even guitars at her resting place, as if offering pieces of themselves back to the woman who gave them so much through her music. And thanks to modern technology, Patsy's songs reach audiences across the world who never knew her while she was alive. Streaming platforms report millions of plays each year, and documentaries continue to retell her story for new ears. Lessons from Patsy's journey. When we look back at Patsy Cline's life, it's easy to focus only on the tragedy, the plane crash, the unfulfilled potential, the heartbreak of a career cut short. But if we stop there, we miss the deeper lesson she left behind. Patsy's life wasn't just about her death. It was about perseverance. She started with nothing, a working-class girl from Virginia who faced rejection after rejection. She was told she wasn't pretty enough, not polished enough, not the right kind of singer for Nashville. But she refused to change who she was. And that's the lesson: greatness doesn't come from fitting the mold. It comes from breaking it. Patsy didn't wait for permission to be herself. She simply was, bold, brash, and utterly unforgettable. Her story tells us that no matter how short life may be, it's what you do with the time you have that creates a legacy. The eternal echo of her voice. When Patsy sang, she didn't just perform a song, she poured her entire soul into it. That's why her recordings still feel alive today. Listen to I Fall to Pieces. Even though it was recorded over 60 years ago, it still feels raw, immediate, and painfully relatable. Listen to Crazy and you'll hear heartbreak in every syllable. These songs remind us that human emotions never change. Love, loss, longing, they are as timeless as Patsy's voice. And maybe that's why Patsy Cline feels eternal. Her voice isn't just preserved on vinyl or streaming platforms. It's preserved in the way it makes us feel, the lump in the throat, the chill on the skin, the memory of someone we've loved and lost. Every time her voice is played, it's as if Patsy herself walks back into the room. She's not gone. She's only one song away. A final goodbye, and an inspiration forever. Patsy Cline's life was short, but it was brilliant. She left us at just 30 years old, yet she carved her name into history alongside the greatest voices of all time. Her story is one of triumph against the odds, of courage in the face of rejection, of authenticity in an industry that often demanded compromise. And though tragedy claimed her far too soon, her voice became immortal, a beacon for dreamers, a comfort for the broken-hearted, and an anthem for those who dare to be themselves. As we close her story, let's remember this: Patsy Cline may have sung about heartbreak, but her life teaches us resilience. She may have sung about pain, but her journey speaks of courage. And though her own dreams were cut short, she left behind music that continues to help others believe in theirs. So the next time you hear Patsy's voice floating through a speaker, don't just hear the sadness of a life gone too soon. Hear the strength, the beauty, and the unshakable proof that even a short life can echo for eternity. Because Patsy Cline is not just a memory. She is a voice that will never fade.